This is Fountain Pendulum. In this video, we're going over conditioning your leather. And if you're a big fan of fountain pens, chances are that you may be a big fan of leather also, and leather goods that kind of correspond with your fountain pen hobby. So here I have some Galen leather balm. So very natural. I like using natural products as natural as possible when I can. And I have already used this to apply the conditioning layer onto these three leather goods. So I had this Galen leather singular pen sleeve, and it was quite stiff and dry feeling. And so I decided to go ahead and apply some of this leather balm to it. And now it's comparatively supple, soft, and flexible. So it was in great need of some conditioning, even though I had got it brand new. So let me read you the directions here. So restore, renew, protect. Ensure that all leather goods are clean and dry. Test small. Amount on a hidden patch of leather. Start with a small amount. Best applied by hand and massaged into leather. Leather will absorb the balm immediately. Return to their natural shade within 24 hours. Repeat as necessary. Okay, so a couple notes on this. I do recommend using your hands to apply it. And I do recommend using a small amount. This was so dry, and this was the first item I did, that I put quite a bit on. And it did absorb it, but I think I did put a little too much because for probably almost a week or several days, it felt kind of like sticky and waxy. So I think that was the inability for this dried out leather to continue to absorb the amount of balm that I had put on it. So I would say to resist the temptation of that when you're dealing with your leathers, and you're not going to be happy if you have like the sticky residue or waxy feeling residue on top. I think eventually if the leather is very dry, it will absorb it. It's just going to take a lot longer. So like a week or two possibly. So this is probably about a week later, and it still feels a little bit sticky or waxy, but now it's more comfortable to handle. Before it was just like, don't want to touch it. So that's what I have to say about that. I guess if there is a surplus on the surface, you can wipe it off with a towel or of sorts, but still, my recommendation is to do a light, small coat and go from there as needed. The benefits to adding the leather balm, so is to condition the leather to keep it soft and supple, but also it's adding a protective layer. So this is going to be more water or stain repellent than if it was uncoated. And I think that has to do with kind of porosity and protection. When something is very dry, it acts like a dry sponge and it soaks it up, whatever that may be, due to porosity. I know that may seem kind of counterintuitive, but I think it's true with a lot of things, with skin, with wood, with leather. So I think living materials, if that makes sense. Versus when it's hydrated and conditioned, it's more repellent to those things. So in any case, I would say that after conditioning and after it absorbing and fully kind of drying, if you want to call it that, the tone is the same, but it's enriched, so darker. It doesn't return to the lightness of when it was dry. And I would say that that is true for all three of these items. So that's Galen leather. Then I have this leather notebook sleeve. And I wondered too that, see how it has all these scratches? I got this secondhand, but I'm wondering if you had gotten this brand new, applied the balm, if it would make it more scratch resistant also. It's a thought. So this is the Baron Fig Guardian sleeve. So I applied that. Same thing, the tone is the same, but it's much enriched, or maybe several shades darker. Same thing here. I think I did apply a little bit too much balm, and so it has kind of a little bit of a tacky or a little bit of a waxy feeling. And I think it has to do with the leather too. This is a traveler's notebook that I have. I have a video on this if you're interested in watching it. But I got it brand new, and I thought this is the first item, well, I guess other than this one, that I applied brand new. And this one, it is a different feeling of leather so than these two, which are more slick. So I think it absorbed it a lot better. I'm not sure that I did a better job restraining myself in the amount, but it made a big difference. It's very soft, very supple, and this one feels the most of how I'd like it to feel. It had like light freckles of brown, and now it's much more even. It's faintly there if you look carefully, but it really enriched the color. And I did it all through the inside as well, and on the edges. So that's an overview and what I've done so far. I'm liking the direction that these projects are going in general, especially to protect. So I have a couple more items that I'm going to do, and I thought I would make a video on them so that you can see what it looks like. Now, I wish I would have done these sooner because I have gotten, not too bad yet, but I've gotten some ink staining on these, and I want to avoid further damage because even using a leather cleaner and, you know, alcohol, which is a questionable, it really didn't, you know, take care of the issue. So to avoid further damage and protect these, I've had these for maybe about a year, I would say. And then this I've gotten brand new. This one's actually in good condition as far as it's not very dry. It's quite supple, but I'm going to go ahead. These are all from Galen Leather. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the Galen Leather Balm onto these. So the first thing I recommend, and I do this no matter what I'm conditioning, is remove anything that can be removed, because this can be a bit of a sticky process, and you don't want to get dirty what isn't meant. So I'm going to apply, I'm going to apply, let's see. Yeah, I think I'll reach down in here and apply to this area as well. It feels like the whole back of this is leather, and then the front side is that faux fabric. So that's the plan. Another thing I would advise is putting something down underneath the area you're working, because your hands will get sticky and you don't want spots of oil all over. So I'm going to put some paper towel down. All right, I'm going to start with the smallest product and work my way up from there. So this Leather Balm has this twist and open feature, and that works really well. And it's a quite firm wax until it gets warmed up. So I usually will go around the perimeter and start with that. Work it in your hands so that it's warmed up and more kind of pliable. And again, don't have globs of it, just enough to start working. So I'm going to start just like this. and do it in a, somewhat organized fashion. So I'm working back and forth on this right side. And then once I have the product rather evenly distributed on the right side, I'm going to go ahead and start massaging it in. There, that looks quite even. Can you see the difference? It looks kind of matte and darker. All right, now I'll do the other side. So again, pick up some on your hands, melt it down, and then go over the area. And then once the product is distributed, then massage it in. Massaging helps the material absorb evenly, but it also continues that heating and friction so that it takes evenly. All right, now I'll do the other side. So as you can see, this doesn't really have to take a long time, but I think it does take a certain level of concentration if you want your items to turn out well. So massaging it in. A note I have for you too is when you work a spine or an area that has a bend to it, it tends to be more dry. So give a little extra attention to make sure that that area is well coated and well massaged to absorb that wax in. All right, so that's just about done. I'm going to put a little bit extra on the spine, like I mentioned. And then what I like to do at the end is just have a little bit on my finger and do these edges, because I think it gives it a really nice finished look. It gives those edges a little bit of a polish, because it's kind of a raw suede. This takes a little bit of time to massage it in because it is quite quite dry. But I think it is a really nice finishing touch. All right, there is one. And I'm just going to run over everything again. All right, first one done. It's a good warm-up. Start with something that you're not very concerned about. I would say that these undyed natural ones are the ones I'm most concerned with turning out well. So that's why I saved them to the last, because they're the appearance I care about most out of all the items that I've shown you. Okay, so let's start on this one. Again, start organized and methodical. You can always put more, but you can't put less. So this crease I'm going to focus on because, again, like I mentioned, anywhere there's some sort of spine or fold will be, in my experience and opinion, more dry. Okay, this is going well. I'm happy with how this is progressing. I feel like it's even, and I feel like I am in control of the situation. Good. So literally what I'm doing is just swiping and using it. I used to go for digs, but I've noticed like as you're working with this, it just melts on its own from your, basically from friction and your body temperature. So I'm going to work this crease nicely. Basically just using 1 or 2 fingers and then touching them to each other when I need more product. Very happy with how this is going. I was most concerned about these. Okay, you can see already that it's much, you know, remarkably darker, right? All right, so there we have it. Even if things look a little bit, just a little bit spotty, things will absorb and take, I think, quite evenly. So there we have it for these 3. And I'll take a video of it when everything's dry so you can see the comparison. But a note on cleanup. This lid, when you clamp it, you have to put a lot of pressure all the way around to get it to close securely. Okay, so that's done. Your hands, they're going to be sticky from the various oils, so the cocoa, shea butter, and almond oil and other that are the ingredients. What I recommend doing is getting some lotion and rubbing it all over your hands, rubbing it for quite some time to loosen those oils off, because oil removes oil. And then rinse it, use a little bit of hand soap, and you'll be good to go. All right, we are 2 weeks later in time, which is plenty sufficient for the leather items to cure or absorb this Galen leather balm that we have applied. So they're no longer oily to the touch at all, but I would definitely say that even 2 weeks later, the color has been enriched and therefore darkened. So it's not the same, it's the same hue or tonality, but it is a bit darker for sure. And the textures have changed, so they haven't actually returned to what they originally felt like. So I'll just talk about that for a minute. First of all, this traveler's notebook was the softest leather out of all of them, and it feels, in my opinion, the best out of all of them because it still feels very soft. It feels like it definitely has a little bit of a coating to it, but I think it's just helped the characteristic of this leather to better it. So it has evened out the tonality more, which was more freckled before, and it feels very soft, but it feels well protected. So I really like how that has turned out. Then the notebook, it feels, now these leathers, compared to this one, this was always very soft and had like a very I'm going to say porous feeling. Um, like it, and these were more smooth and almost slick, but had a soft touch. And now I would say they feel more slick, a little like they're still soft, but they're more slick and almost a slight, I don't want to say waxy because it's not sticky, but maybe this sound will resonate the best. Like, and if I do that to this one, just nothing happens. So I think because these were such slick, smooth, almost like compacted leather, that wax, instead of absorbing, or that balm, I should say, instead of absorbing really deep into the skin of the leather, absorbs in, but lives still quite a bit on the surface. So it's kind of, and they're all kind of like that, right? So, because I think these are all a very similar leather. So these 3 items were from Galen leather, and then this one is Buron fig. So these are my thoughts. Personally, I prefer the feeling of the leather originally as it came. It's very soft, and I like that it had a little bit of a pinker hue, versus now it's more of a deeper natural. So more on that tan side. So I preferred the coloring before. I would say I prefer the touch before. It resonates more with that soft leather feeling that I really enjoy on all these pieces, except this one. This one was so unpleasant to touch. It was so dry. So this one has been improved. So that's great. But what you have to decide, and what I had to decide, is, well, do I want to be able to enjoy that pink hue and that softness that I like? Or do I want my products to be protected? Because this leather balm is adding a layer of protection against water stains, ink stains, wear and tear. It's also offering a conditioning because leathers dry out with time. So that's, in my mind, more the decision that's to be made. Because if it was just like, oh, well, which one do you like the feel and color of better? It would be, for these leathers, the prior. For these leathers, the latter. So, but to me, it's more important. I've already gotten a stain here, and I don't want that to continue. Now, I'm not saying that if you get ink on these and you don't notice or clean it up right away, that it won't stain. It most likely will. But if you get ink on it and notice right away, I think that gives a little bit more of a leeway to wipe it up, because that balm is on the top layer and it will protect the deeper layer of the leather, give you more time to wipe it up. And I would say for water, it's the same thing. I think instead of the water soaking in right away to that porous leather, I think if you did get water on it, it kind of beads up and gives you an opportunity to wipe it up. So, I can still see that there is a spotting there, but that's because it got wet. And I think as it dries, it'll just disappear. So those are my thoughts on, and probably yeah. So those are my thoughts on the Galen Leather Balm and how to apply it and how everything worked out. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy your leather goods.